I'm in Nashville, Tennessee today, just sitting at home.
Home of the honky tonks. Man, what a revival down there, huh? With the honky tonks and downtown. It looks wonderful.
We always say you're welcome to come visit, but please don't move here.
When you're down there, you have all these foods that are not good for you. How hard is it not to eat brisket, ribs, or anything that's smoked?
Well, I think everything in moderation, because we have a possible cookbook coming next. So I'm trying to take some of those grandmother recipes and make them a little more healthy, but I'm not winning that battle.
Today's video is sponsored by The Vibe, everyone's favorite at work or on the go radio station, playing Spanish and English hits from the 80s till now all day long. Turn it up, keep it here, and feel the vibe by following the QR code on your screen or tap the link in the description.
What Mattered Most, a memoir by Ty Herndon and author David Ritz. Now, how did this project come about?
Well, I've been a huge fan of David Ritz for a long time. Of course, we all love the Aretha Franklin story, the Willie Nelson, the Rolling Stones. He's done such beautiful work over the years. I went through a really tough time in 2020, which we walked through in this book, in this memoir, and he saw an article in People magazine, and he actually sought me out and called me, said, man, I feel led to sit down and talk to you about your story. And it was very interesting because I never thought my story had a lot of value. But people have approached me about a book before, but I was also told to not seek that out, that it would come to you. And that is exactly what happened. And David and I struck up an awesome friendship and began a 2.5-year journey to do this memoir. It probably should have only taken about a year, but I found myself having to excavate rooms that were long buried and find the courage to unlock them and decide and talk about it.
This is a process, right? It's almost like a therapy. And during this therapeutic process of excavating, what helped get over those humps and have those breakthroughs?
Well, man, at the start of this book, I started the whole thing by saying this book is not going to make me look good. The readers most likely not going to like me by the time they get to the middle, and they're probably just going to want to put it down. But what I'm hearing is no, that's not what's happening. But by the end, I think that they're seeing something in themselves and hearing a message of hope and faith and love, which we all need. And those same things it just really echoes so much of what we're all going through in this life, and there's no mess that you can't clean up, at least have the courage to try. And so, I spent years singing about what mattered most to everyone else while I was terrified to show the world who I actually was. And so this book is about the high cost of the mask that I wore for 3 decades and the freedom to finally take it off. So people have asked me why I'm telling this story now, and it's because the secrets that almost killed me are the very things that I believe can save someone else. And I've learned this through this process, that no matter how big your scars are, they can become your stars. Your scars can be your stars. And man, I'm so grateful that this book is being received with the grace of what it is.
When you have that mask on, a lot of negativity manifests itself, right? Because you don't know how to cope, you don't know how to deal. Do you cover that part in the book where you talk about relapse, right? The mistakes, the 100 times falling down, and the 101th time that you got up.
My gosh, man!
What got you through that?
There's a quote by Sandra Bernhardt, and she always said there's no shame in falling down. The shame is when you don't try to get up. And I use a lot of analogies in this book because, if I'm sitting in my pickup truck, that windshield mirror is really big, but that rear view mirror is really small. And, to have to look back and start excavating moments. David and I have become great friends, and I believe that we thought this process would only take about a year, but it took 2.5 years because he graciously sat with me as we dug very deep and excavated into places that I did not want to go. I just thought maybe it was possible not to go that deep in and have to visit rooms that were shut off to me forever, and because I didn't understand them. and being able to find the key to open those doors. And let me tell you something, folks. This is not a situation where you can hire a cleaning crew to go in. You have to. It's you. It is you that you go in and sit down in the middle of some horrific trauma and some horrific messes, and you start the journey of making sense of it all. And as that happens, I've been able to. I think you sit down with me and you process this as a reader with me. My own mother said. She didn't know a lot of these, she didn't know details of a lot of these stories, but she said, the way that you guys put this on paper, she goes, I was sitting there with you, son. She goes, in the worst of a moment, I got to give you a hug. And Amanda just slapped me in the face because it was like, wow, Mom, that is incredible. She said, well, she goes, I found redemption for my own child in ways that I never thought I would. And it started changing the whole landscape for me, because the things, your scars are your stars, like I said, but the things that you most fear sometimes are the answers that you find the answers in places you never thought you would.
People underestimate how lonely the bottom is, and how dark, and how you're literally feeling like you're the only one in the world. Who or how? What steps do you take to slowly crawl out of that darkness, that hole? What were the first things of positivity you filled that hole with? Wow,
that's a great question. This book opens up with my 10-year-old self. And I was just this on fire for God little dude who just knew nothing. And I have two codependent relationships that stand with me today, and that's my relationship with my higher power and my mom. My marriage, we're not codependent. We're just pretty healthy. But man, this, for this book to open up with a preacher pointing a finger at this little 10-year-old kid and calling him an abomination, and before I even knew what the word meant, and having to process words like homosexuality, that could have been a tractor for all I knew, and and walking away from that and chopping that little spirit down into a million pieces was trauma one. In my story. So, but through all of that, and I love this question, through all of that, one thing that never faltered was this gift of music. It was my safe place to run. I always could go there and feel safe. And when David and I started doing a timeline for this story, he said, Ty, it wasn't that hard for me, because you have been telling this story from day one in your music. You might have changed the pronouns, he said, but from day one, all I had to do was go through these albums and reference where you were in your life at that time, because you were screaming the truth. And I had never realized that. And so, man, to look back on this journey, and being comfortable in these blood and bones as that I feel now, and the acceptance that I have wherever I go, has been born within myself. And that's not something I saw coming with this book. So, yes. And so what a great question. Thank you for asking me that.
Let's get back to, as a member of now you said you played music all your life. You're most known to have started with the Tennessee River Boys. Back then, how was that creative process for you, and has that evolved over time?
Well, isn't it funny, man, because what people don't know is that I was in a theme park group called the Tennessee River Boys that eventually turned into Diamond Rio. And the way that happened was that I explained it in the book that I got to be on a TV show called Star Search, which some horrific things happened to me there, and which I walked through for the first time ever. And there was such freedom in that. But coming back off the show, Marty Rowe took my place. He filled in for me and did such a great job that they were able to move forward with and become Diamond Rio. And so we all had big successes anyway. But I love that story so much because so many great artists came out of the Opryland, which is a theme park here in Nashville. Everyone from Kristen Chenoweth to Shelley Wright to Little Texas. So many people got their start there. But I have such a legacy in music, and I do get to talk about that a lot in this memoir.
Now, as a creative, how do you seek inspiration? Are you a lonely person in a corner, or are you a cafe, back of the bar type of creative? How do you find inspiration?
Well, I think I spent 3 decades of my life doing my very best not to be seen, and to be able to be so seen today. I wouldn't say I'm an in your face kind of guy, but I am the guy that if you seek the truth and want to talk about it, I've got a cup of coffee for you, and we can certainly sit and explore what might be your path to greatness. And mine certainly came at some people would say a cost, but it doesn't feel like a cost to me. It just feels like a part of the journey that saved my life.
Hmm. Do you feel like your pain came through the music you were creating throughout the past 30 years?
Oh my goodness. I think we use music to celebrate everything in our lives, but I used music to tell the truth. And that was the one place that I could run to that was safe for me. And I began writing my truth. And I think a lot of people, when they turn on the radio today, or they put on an album, or they put their iPod on, we run to music to do everything in our lives. To meditate, to celebrate, to heal, to mourn the loss of something. And it's such a beautiful gift. And so I'm so glad that it was part of my DNA. So it's true to say in the memoir, in the halls of this book, that music actually did save me.
What message you have to that young person that's out there navigating life, in their, maybe in their teens and late teens and their 20s and trying to figure it out? What kind of advice would you give them that you wish someone would have given you 30 years ago?
I had a moment when I came out because, I never really liked labels of any kind, and I still don't, but after I came out, I stood in front of 5,000 people and realized that I was going to actually get to keep doing music. And I was prepared to walk away from it when I came out because I didn't know. And I stood there and I started weeping, and then I got my composure before I'd even sang a song. And this is what I want a young person to hear right now. I looked at that crowd and said, well, I guess you guys heard the big news. I'm a vegetarian. And that's how little it meant to me. It's like, hear me sing, hear my music. And so when I talk to kids today, I say, come to this town and be the talent that you are. If you want to be a singer, take voice lessons and be a great singer. If you want to be a producer, if you want to be a guitar player, be the best and know your history, know country music, know it all. And then I promise you that who you are in your DNA will follow suit, and you will get to be your most beautiful, authentic, shining self. And that is the lesson that I would sit down with anyone, have a cup of coffee and tell them.
Wow. What matters most of Memoir, Ty Herndon and David, authored by David Ritz, a tandem that brought about, disclosure and a lot of happiness in your life. Any final words for any interested readers out there that should be digging into this book?
Well, I will tell you this. I had a good friend say the other day who was so critical, and she's such a book critic. She goes, Ty Herndon, she goes, this book, she goes, this is Steel Magnolias meets fried green tomatoes with a touch of Pretty Woman and with a ton of Kardashians. I said, okay, that means, she goes, I couldn't put it down. I was like, okay, well, that's the greatest compliment of my life then.
Wow. Thank you so much for your time, Ty. Have a great day.
You, my friend, thank you. Those were some amazing questions. Thank you for letting me answer them.
If you're enjoying this content and would like to support the Jose Candelario Show, here are a few ways you can donate and help us keep creating more interviews, stories, and community content. Your support truly makes a difference. And thank you.